There's no question about it. The role of marketing leadership is evolving before our eyes. Chief marketing officers are taking on new responsibilities and feeling new pressures. They're building innovative and powerful relationships across the C-suite. Marketing has seized a new leading role in navigating their organisations into the digitally driven future. It's an exciting opportunity full of challenges. Now, we've got a brand new B2B marketing report from Transmission. It's called Closing the CMO-CFO Brand Value Gap. It was created early this month to explore the key fears, uncertainties, and doubts that we often hear about brand building initiatives from business leadership teams, CFOs in particular, who seem to be still questioning the commercial impact and effectiveness of brand marketing. Many of the CMOs that we work with, or the marketing leaders we have real contact with, have a challenge in convincing their CFO to allocate a greater proportion of marketing budget towards brand awareness or brand engagement programs. And we wanted to explore why. What's causing them to feel that way? Is someone influencing or something influencing their perception? And whether there's anything we can do as marketeers to overturn that mindset. So we're going to kick off the discussion questions for our panel. First of all, I'd love to hear a brief overview of your backgrounds and how you're feeling about the state of marketing leadership in your organisations and in the industry today. Gabby, can I start with you?
So I've been in marketing my entire career, and all in tech, which is B2B central, I think, especially for enterprise. I don't really know how to frame the state of it, but I think that progressively, over my career anyway, I've seen certain things stay the same and certain things change. Digital obviously was a big shift, but there are certain aspects that stay the same. And the relationship between the CFO is obviously something that ebbs and flows with the leader. So I think that B2B is evolving. I think the enterprise evolves, tech evolves, but I'm really excited about the future of, at least with me and in my industry, about tech and B2B and how marketing can continue to expand that relationship.
Great. Jill, do you feel the same? Do you feel that there's certain things that have been there for a long time, and then there's new horizons, new challenges that you're experiencing in the leadership role as a marketeer?
Yeah, definitely. I've been in marketing for also many decades, or in a general manager and kind of business commercial role, almost always in professional services of some sort. So for me, I would agree. I think there's always been some aspects that have kind of ebbed and flowed and been different. Technology on the professional services side has certainly evolved. But I also think this kind of notion of collaboration and kind of really being this centerpiece of the organization and almost the middle child that kind of brings everybody together, and that also kind of pulls the organization along, has been more and more important and kind of central to that marketing role. So it's a fun place to be right now. I think a really critical place to be, and I agree with Gaby. This CFO kind of finance marketing connection has never been more critical. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Wonderful, thanks, Jill.
Yeah.
And Peter, from the B2B Institute's perspective, what's the marketing landscape looking like from the research and the insights that you're learning?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always an obsession with what's going to change in marketing. You know, Gabby, I think you said it best. The real question, what isn't going to change? In many ways, the fundamental principles of marketing haven't changed in 100 years, maybe even 100,000 years, because a lot of it is just about how humans make decisions.
Yeah,
it's applied psychology, right? And the human brain hasn't changed since it was initially created, I don't know, 10 million years or so. So at the Institute, we're very curious about what are these fundamental principles of growth that have always been true and always will be true. And brand is one of them. Brand is just a bias of how humans make fast and easy decisions. It will be as relevant 100 years from now as it is today. And that's what a lot of our research covers, these fundamental principles of growth and how to drive better financial impact, which we hope helps CMOs make the case to CFOs for bigger and better investments in marketing.
As you guys have all said, you know, change is inevitable in our industry. It's constantly changing. Obviously, with economic pressures, with the onset of things like AI, is there a lot of pressure on the CMO these days to keep up with that pace of change? And how do you guys deal with that pressure? Maybe, Jill, I'll ask you first.
Yeah, I think that it's pressure, but it's excitement.
Yeah.
And I think, again, I think there are certain roles in organizations where it's really important to be this kind of visionary type of leader, right? There are certain roles where it's
Yeah.
really important you're focused on the operation and the day-to-day. There are other roles where I think it's really important that you're looking a few steps ahead. And I think a lot of organizations are organized so that that marketing function really kind of trots along a few steps ahead. So with things like generative AI and technology and change that is going on, I think there's a lot of expectation that marketing, because we should be focused outside in, kind of bring those things into the organization, champion what clients are challenged with, and champion how are we going to address these things internally and kind of meet the changing needs of clients through the market. So, I think it's a really important role that we play.
Gaby, from your perspective, do you have an expectation on you when you're in a leadership meeting to talk about the changes that are coming, to predict the future, to be a bit forth thinking in terms of what's coming through in the market, and you need to represent that role in the C-suite?
No, actually. The engineering team in my company is tasked with that. But the way I partner with them is saying in the C-suite, my job is to look around the corner. My job is to make the market.
Yeah.
So you can come with great innovation ideas all day long. Thank you so much. Please innovate. My job is to figure out if there's actually a market for that and if we can tap into it. I think that's a really big distinction for a lot of people inside my company. Everybody wants to innovate. Everybody wants the next big thing. ChatGPT, how are you using it? Sustainability, are you green? My job is to figure out if we can go there and to help the company go there. So I think it's a really nice balance between looking around that corner, being able to articulate it, but then bringing it back and saying, can we exploit it? And is this something that is germane to our business or that our business can evolve to be? That's, to me, an exciting part of being a CMO.
Fantastic answer, thank you. And Peter, I guess, for CMOs who are looking towards the B2B Institute for advice, do you guys help out CMOs with looking at, what is the future trends, the new things that are happening, or is it about trying to keep people level-headed and making sure that they're focusing on the things that matter rather than getting distracted by every new trend that's coming through?
Yeah, I gotta say, I think it's the latter. I think our industry, we have too many futurists and not enough historians. There are these foundational principles in B2B that worked in the past and will work in the future. A good example would be reach, okay? Like a very foundational principle of marketing is you cannot possibly influence a buyer who you never reached in the first place. So reach is a gating factor on marketing effectiveness. Of course, technology has changed rapidly. There's way new formats to reach people than ever before. There's connected TV, there's digital, and then there are some that have been around for a long time. But what you need those channels to deliver has not changed and will never change, which is you need to use them to reach B2B buyers. But people don't talk about reach. Actually, we've done research that said marketers think reach is an old-fashioned metric, and actually now all of days it's about click-through rate and hyper-targeting. So we've lost sight of some of these bedrock principles as we've chased these new technologies, and the technologies are just tools to do things, and the things that we need to do, I would argue, really have not changed much. There's actually a very famous Jeff Bezos quote I always loved. MBA students are always like, Jeff, what's gonna change, Jeff? And he always says, that's a bad question. The question is, what's not going to change? I know in 10 years, people will still want faster service and cheaper prices, so that's what I'm focused on here at AM. You can build a strategy around things that can't change. You can't build a strategy around generative AI because what it did 2 days ago is not the same as what it will do 3 months from now, right? So it's about those bedrock principles, and that is almost exclusively what we are focused on at the B2B Institute.
Can I just build on him?
Yes,
of course, please.
That is exactly what my CFO said to me when he and I sat down when I was hired, and he's like, dear God, please stop changing the goal line.
Yes.
Interesting, yeah.
Keep your metrics, or tell me what they are and then stick to them. I'm sick and tired of going into a meeting where marketing is like, it's this, it's this, it's this.
Yeah, it must be frustrating, especially from a finance perspective,
Right.
right? Like if you're, imagine this is a finance panel, okay?
Right.
And they said, what metrics do you use to
Would a
evaluate
finance
your
person
success?
actually be on this?
Right, okay, no, they wouldn't,
year.
right? But if you're on a marketing panel, every marketer will give you different metrics.
Right.
Finance panel, there are generally accepted accounting principles. People aren't making up their accounting principles on a case-by-case basis. So I think this shift from finance to there's very well understood principles and we all follow it the same to marketing, where everyone makes up their own metrics and their own definitions of success. To your point, I'm sure that's like very frustrating for
sure it is,
CFOs.
yeah. I think there's also a big debate about why are we not even using the same metrics the business is using
Right.
to define success.
Right.
Right? So is it about new business? Is it about revenue? Is it about profitability?
Yes.
And all the little metrics we're using are leading indicators that help us. But if we're sharing our scorecards
So right.
with the business, there's something wrong.
Yeah, and they have to be tied to the business
Exactly,
metrics. First
right.
thing, whenever I get a marketing plan these days, first thing I do is I hit Control-Alt-F, and I just search for a dollar sign.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
90% of the time, there's no dollar sign anywhere in the marketing strategy.
Ever. I
Right?
will say, the first change I made is we are not going into another meeting and saying we're green. We're not green.
Yeah.
If this company or this product or this is yellow or red, we're yellow or red. You're not green anymore. That's back to your metrics,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's
we
right.
have to be responsive to the business. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it.
Let's talk a little bit about brand marketing specifically. As CMOs, both Gaby and Jill, you're very much responsible for the brand trust and brand growth of your organisation. What are the key priorities? And maybe I'll start with you, Jill. What's the key priorities when it comes to brand in your mind right now?
It's funny, I'm going to seem like I took your answer, but it is about reach for us.
Yeah.
Brand is about reaching the 95%, maybe 99%, right, of people who aren't in the market for our product today. And it's, for us, that's about making an emotional connection, not a rational connection, because it's got to be memorable, and we've got to hit them 12, 15, 20 times for them to remember us in the moment when they do need us. So it is all about reach. It's about being very consistent. I think the really hard part about marketers is we get bored, right? We're creative. So we are constantly wanting to change things up, get creative, make it different, and we have to be really disciplined about being consistent, saying something memorable and simple, and just beating it and beating it and beating it and beating it, so that when they are in market, we're top of mind. And that's all it is about, is reach. That's what we're focused on.
Oh, incredibly said.
Simple.
Amen. Amen. I
High
can't tell you
five.
how few CMOs, I think, fully appreciate that is what brand marketing is designed to do. It's amazing to hear you say that.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear,
She's
yeah.
a great CMO.
Great CMO. Great CMO.
We can end this, we're just going to
We're
wrap it
good.
now.
We're good. I think you heard everything you need to hear.
Gaby, for you, is it similar? Is it about reach and building that mental availability, or do you have a different set of brand objectives for yourself over the next sort of 12 months?
No, it's shocking. I love it that we're stealing each other's language. I think I had to come at it. I'm the third in about 7 years for CMOs in my company, who've done some amazing creative work, and it's really exciting to follow them. To be fair, I couldn't go back in and be the CMO who's like, oh, let's go do it again. Let's go rebrand. I think rebrand for me had to be something that I could simplify the story and be consistent with. So I went back to basics and said, we're going to do rebrand, but we're doing it all about the narrative.
Nice.
What's broken in the market? What are people saying about us? How do we fix that? And bring everybody along for that ride, and then take things off the table that were causing conflict. I'm not doing a brand campaign right now. So CFO, relax. I'm not going to go run off and spend a lot of money. CEO, relax. I'm not going to change the logo. I want to focus in on how we tell the story and make sure that that's resonant in the market so I can get reach.
Okay.
And then go back in and decide if that works, then how do we zhuzh it up? Marketing can be about zhuzh. You're right, we get bored. I love zhuzh. But if I don't get the stuff right, zhuzh is just lipstick.
Yeah.
Just on that then, so if you need to go to your leadership team, especially your CFO, and ask for an investment in brand for the next 12 months, and obviously that investment has to lead to some kind of metrics and ROI, what's the best way of positioning the need to invest in brand, especially in the eyes of the CFO, in your perspective?
Well, for mine, I got told a story. I think we were actually telling this story at dinner.
Yeah, it was an amazing story.
It's like buying a car. And I was like, it's not like buying a car. For my product, you don't just buy a car online. I mean, there's so many aspects to that now. You can't equate it to that. I was like, how, when you go and talk about yourself, do people know who you work for? And he's like, well, no. And I was like, would you like them to know who you work for? Well, maybe. And I was like, so I can help with that. $500,000, I can help with that. And then he said, well, what comes next? I said, probably another 500 million, but let's start with 500,000. And that kind of got the story going. I think the bigger conversation was, how do you equate it? Is it a door opener? Yeah. Do you want people to know who you are? Yeah, okay, I think I do. Your salespeople need to know that too. They can't keep walking in cold. And so that was how the conversation started. Again, after 45 minutes of being told where we did everything wrong for the past 5 years and what he'd like to see, I think it's about listening. I didn't have an opinion, a big opinion that I was forcing down his throat. I heard him, I had a solution, and it was not all in, it was, let's take baby steps.
Yeah, I think that's what you're saying. Small steps, explain simply, understand the context of why it's important that we are doing something about brand and what the impact is going to be. But it's not a great big brand campaign that's going to cost millions and millions and millions that people feel potentially very scared of and unsure about. So it's explaining it in the language, as you said, Peter, of the CFO, but in a simple way and moving up, I guess, the journey. Here's what we're going to do for the first year. Here's what we're going to do for the next year.
But also making it personal for him,
Yep.
and then personal for the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah.
I had to take, and I don't know, maybe you had to do the same thing. I had to take a very practical approach because we wanted to do a big brand push. We've needed to do a big brand push. But it's a tough time to do that, right? Markets are tough. It's hard to find money. But I believe in it. We believe in it, right? We know the power, and we've all seen the research, right? You can keep doing demand gen campaigns, but without that brand layer, you're not bringing in the net new.
So
they become less impactful. We're not going to hit our numbers, right? So I know we need brand. So what we ended up doing was going to the business leaders who fund us, essentially, right? They have to give portions of their P&L to us that we then centrally manage, and kind of built the case for brand with them. And so what we had to do was take the same amount of money and say, how pragmatically, like with the same budget, how are we going to shift it around to fund a piece of brand because we know it's important. So instead of going to the CFO and saying we need a new influx of money, it was like, listen, we know it's important, so we're going to take what we've got, dedicate a portion of it to brand, and we know it will pay off. And I think things like that are really important to do, to say, it's so important that we're going to do it with the money we've got.
Yep.
And we're going to build a scorecard and build some metrics to show you in a smaller scale that it does work. And we're going to take the risk. Because why should the CFO take the risk? He doesn't know.
Great advice.
So we'll take the risk, and we'll show you it works on a smaller scale in a couple of markets, and then build momentum. But I think in a market like this, I don't think anyone's going to hand you a check for $100 million. So use what you've got, be pragmatic, think like a CEO, and build your case.
Fantastic. So closing words from you, Peter, and one piece of advice to the audience watching: how do we close that CMO-CFO gap? What's the one piece of advice that would help our audience?
I think you've gotten some incredible advice already, and I think the crux of it is about framing things in a financial way that different stakeholders can understand. If you're talking to a CFO, it's, hey, what do CFOs care about? The stock price. What's the stock price based on? Future cash flows. 80% of the value of a firm is based on future cash flows. Where do future cash flows come from? Future buyers. How do you influence future buyers? It's not by saying, buy now, click now, click now. It's by, as you said, memory generation, making sure you're memorable when people go and market. And then to your point, Gaby, it's like, if you're talking to sales, it's, Do you want people to pick up the phone when you call? Do you want them to come to your events? Do you want them to respond to your emails? They're not going to do that if they've never heard of the company you work at. So we need to get better at marketing. And part of that, as always, is about understanding your customer internally and externally and speaking to them in language they understand.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Gaby, Jill, and Peter. Really interesting discussion, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank
Of course,
you.
thank you.